Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for CBM Calling today. It's a very special day. We are going to be reflecting on the one-year anniversary of the Beirut blast. And I am joined today by my colleague, Joe Bridi, who is our national field staff based in Beirut, Lebanon. Joe, it's so good to see you. I know that you have intermittent electricity and internet right now, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Joe, can you just take us back to that day a year ago? What do you remember about that day?
Hello, Jen. It's good to be with you again. It's a sad memory to recall. Actually, I remember last year that day we were at home. We had friends over, and suddenly we heard this big explosion. It felt so close that we thought it was in the neighborhood. So I went out to check out what was happening, and everyone was on their balconies, and everyone was asking questions. Where did this happen? Is it close? What is this? And we found out that the garage door of one of the buildings next to us was blown up. And we all thought that it happened there in this garage. But then people started shouting, smokes in Beirut, smoke in Beirut. I went up to the roof and saw a horrible cloud of smoke coming out of somewhere in Beirut we couldn't identify. There were talks that someone tried to assassinate the prime minister designate back then, and like 10 minutes later we found out that the explosion was in the port of Beirut, and we started hearing about the damage. We turned on the TV and we saw the horrible footage that people were sending out to TVs from their phones. It was pretty intense.
One of the most memorable parts was how the church responded so quickly. The church really was frontline responders, and you were part of that response. Can you share a little bit about how the church played a part in helping to care for people during this time of crisis?
Yeah, I remember the second day I was at home. We were all in this mood of not knowing what to do, and I contacted some of our the churches in Beirut, and asked them, what do you think? What should we be doing now? And we all agreed that we should start by going down on the ground, assessing and trying to see what the church can do. The damage was so big that we knew we had an impossible task in front of us. The church would never be able to help in this situation. The maximum thing we can do is maybe provide sandwiches for people who are cleaning on the streets, provide cleaning in the homes, maybe support to those who have been hurt or lost someone, emotional support or spiritual support. So this is what we started with. The second day we went down, and I remember I was walking with a friend, a partner actually, from the States, and we were looking at all this horrible scenes down there. I looked at him and I said, what do you think we can do? This is beyond our capacities. So he said, well, I think we should start about thinking about rebuilding and refurbishing homes. So this is where it started. And I think the third day, I made some calls, and everyone in the churches in Beirut was ready to start doing that, even though we knew we didn't have the financial resources for that. But we all believed that this was the role of the church now. The government was once again failing us, and we knew that this was our call for now. We should be beside the people. We should demonstrate God's love and live out the gospel in front of them. And this is how it all started.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, touching story. Watching the church be the church. And I think this is one of those examples that I think is very inspiring to all of us as we seek to be the church in the places where we live as well, helping to meet needs. And Canadian Baptists responded very generously, and
Yep.
Canadians just responded, I think they, out of compassion and seeing that the needs that arose, we raised close to $400,000 through an appeal that we did to provide support. And you mentioned rebuilding. Can you just explain more about what are some of the ways in which we were able to utilize that money through our partners to be able to help people rebuild their lives?
Yeah, well, first, I want to send an appreciation message and a big thanks for all the Canadian Baptist churches who have graciously and generously donated to the funds for the relief after the Beirut explosion. It made a huge difference with the churches and with everyone, with everyone that the churches have worked with. And maybe I can share a story or two later on, but mainly the funds that came through the Canadian churches came through either ABTS or LSCST and the relief arm Mirath. So through ABTS, actually, a part of the donation was to help people who lost their homes and were accommodated at ABTS in the guest house and the dorms that the students usually use. So most of the funds that were coming through in the first few months were going directly through ABTS to these specific cases. Alongside, it benefited in also rebuilding, refurbishing houses. And when I talk about refurbishing, I'm talking about major home appliances, beds, sofas, TVs, mattresses, whatever the families would need. Food for the families in the area down there that were hit by the blast and who stayed in their homes. Actually, also food support for those families who were at ABTS in that time. Through Mirath, also the funds were going to the same direction. A year after the explosion, these funds are still helping. Wow. When I think about the small donation we make sometimes, and we think about it, we look at it and we say that's nothing compared to the needs we have. I always remember the story of the fishes and the loaves when Jesus blessed and gave everyone, and there was still after everyone was fed. This is exactly what happened with all the funds that we've received after the explosion in Lebanon. We are still, till now, helping families and caring for their needs. I know through ABTS, for example, ABTS is still helping in medical assistance for the families, in food assistance, still doing some reparation work and furnishing homes. The contribution that the Canadian churches have made have greatly impacted the families. They're also supporting education for kids whose parents cannot afford to pay for education now anymore in Lebanon. So the needs are great. Our God is greater. And the gifts sent by the churches has been a blessing.
And it's a beautiful illustration of the value of partnership. And so CBM, we only work in partnership with local churches on the ground, local partners on the ground. And there's a reason for that. And from what you shared, local partners are there, churches are there. When everybody else leaves, when all the relief agencies come in the aftermath, the church is still there, and they will continue to walk alongside people long after the crisis is over.
It's true.
So I wonder if you can also just share with us, what evidence have you seen where God is at work? I'm sure in so many places through this experience, but what has touched you in this whole experience? What has helped to inspire you to keep going?
Well, the first thing that has touched me and has inspired me is the response of the church in Lebanon to this catastrophe. I knew something was going to happen, but I'm sure that all of us didn't expect that all the churches would rise to this challenge and come in to help these families who had lost their homes, lost their loved ones, lost their valuable stuff. So I think this is the greatest impact that still catches me when I go down to Beirut every week. I look around and I see churches still visiting people, caring for their needs, helping them, supporting them. The second thing is when I saw that no matter how big our financial needs were, God was providing everything. When we started with very little. We thought that we would still be able to help for like 4 or 5 months maximum. We're a year from it now, and we're still able to provide help for people and support them. This is amazing. The third thing is we're seeing God working in these people's lives. All the families, without any exception, that we have visited or cared for, say only one thing: the church is a true example that God is here and God is near and God cares for us and loves us.
Well, sadly, we have to come back to what I shared earlier, which is about why you have intermittent internet and electricity right now. And I think some people know that Lebanon is right now in a very precarious situation due to financial crisis. And overall, the situation in the country has declined incredibly over this past year. And, you know, in the midst of that, the pandemic happened as well. And just all of these factors combined have just led to so much instability and families who are in crisis again for a different reason, you know, hunger issues now and financial issues. Can you just share more about what is happening right now in Lebanon and how we can be praying for Lebanon?
A year ago, when some reporters went to the presidential palace and were called to a press conference, one of the reporters asked the president, where are we heading? The president said plainly, if we continue on this, if the situation is not going to improve, we're going to hell. He plainly said this. And Lebanon is now experiencing hell, sadly. It's heartbreaking. We've never experienced what's going on now, even during the civil war. We have shortage of medicine. We have constant power cuts. We have water shortage. Even the backup electrical system that runs on generators is failing us. We have shortage in fuel, in gas, and I can't think of one thing that we are not short on these days, as I mean Lebanese families. The currency is devaluating at a high rate. Before the crisis, the dollar was for 1,500 Lebanese liras. Today, as we speak, the dollar is for 19,000 Lebanese liras today. Last week, it was 23,000. Because of a promise of forming a new government, it picked up a little bit, but we don't think this is going to last because it seems like we're in a political deadlock in Lebanon for so far. On top of that, we have COVID. The health sector is struggling. Doctors and nurses are leaving the country for better opportunities, either in the Gulf area or in North America or Australia. And the doors are open for immigration for these people. Schools are struggling. We don't know if we're going to have schools next year, actually. And this is going to impact the country big time.
Huge.
If we lose education,
That's right.
I don't know what the implications would be.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. During war, I remember we used to go to school. The war was raging and we used to go to school. When it was very hard, we stayed at home. So The situation is very bad. I went to Turkey 2 weeks ago on a family vacation. I I packed big bag of medicine to bring back to Lebanon for our family and our close friends and relatives who are short on medicine. While we were doing this in Turkey, my wife and I looked at each other and we couldn't hold it. It's so sad. You're going away for a vacation, and the only thing you can think of is buying medicine for your loved ones back in Beirut. So yeah, the situation is very hard. Uh, Sometimes we have to wait for like an hour to get 20 liters of fuel in our cars. It's very hot in Lebanon these days. Most of the afternoon we are without a fan, without an air conditioner. We just have to live with it. Among all of this, Jennifer, we have stories of hope that keep us running. And I want to conclude this section with this story because we want to give hope to people.
Yes.
We are bearers of the gospel, and this is our job. This is what we do. Yesterday, I was visiting a lady and her family. She's divorced. She has her eldest son in prison for something wrong that he did, and she tries to care for her family. She has we have been supporting her for a year now. She has started attending our in-person church meetings on Sundays for a month now. Yesterday when I was there, she said, please don't get me wrong, I'm not going to church because of the help you're providing me. I'm going there because I saw something different. This lady is not from a Christian background, and she said, I saw God in the church, and I know that God is in the church. And this is why I'm going, because I want God. I need God. And you guys are giving me God. She said, my community, from the religion background I come from, they didn't care for me after the explosion. No one offered us help at any time. Only the church came and stayed with us. So this is what keeps us moving. This is what keeps us doing what we want to do. And we have hope all the time. We know that this shall pass at the end. It's a crisis that will end. We don't know when. It will end. And we are sure and we believe that God is greater than all the circumstances we are facing these days.
And Joe, we want to just commit that we are praying for you daily, praying for the people of Lebanon to find a way through this crisis. And I know that you are doing all that you are able to do, you and the church, to be able to care for people and help meet people's needs. So we feel so privileged to be able to work alongside you, to have you as part of our CBM family, serving the church in Lebanon, the hands and feet of Christ. So thank you, Joe, for taking your precious time that you have electricity and internet today to be able to share with us. But I know it really means a lot to people to be able to hear from you directly on this special day of remembrance. So thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us or watching today. We're always thankful that you continue to care about the needs of the vulnerable and the marginalized in our world, and that you continue to faithfully support the work of CBM. So thank you for joining us for CBM Calling, and see you next time.